Match day 8 in the NWSL, and it's the first time since early May that every team has had at least 5 or 6 days rest between competitions. The weekend starts with just one match on Friday as the Washington Spirit host Racing Louisville at Segra Field. And then on Saturday, the earlier of the two games features Kansas City Current hosting the Chicago Red Stars, and a triple header on Sunday with New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC hosting San Diego Wave FC. You can catch that game on CBS. Welcome into HQ. I'm your host, Lisa Roman, alongside two former U.S. internationals, Wagner and Lindsey, here to preview this weekend's slate of games. But before we get into that, a lot of players have been incredibly impressive across the league. Aly, at this point in the season, who is your MVP?
I mean, it's got to be Mallory Pugh, right? I don't think there's anyone out there that could argue with that. She's been incredibly impressive. This was a team in Chicago that had one win, one loss without her. And then she got back a little bit healthier, started the second half of the match, and they went on a run. They've had 3 wins, 3 draws. So they've picked up points in every game that she's been a part of. And in that first game that she found her way back in, she had 2 goals and an assist in 45 minutes, which has never occurred in NWSL play before. But it's more than that for Mallory Pugh. Mallory Pugh's ability actually helps the defense. When you think of how she can play between the lines, she relieves a lot of pressure. They haven't conceded in their last 3. I think that's no surprise that Mal is flying high, and she's a big reason for that. And then, of course, other teams can't commit as many numbers forward. With her ability in transition, she's so explosive, and she has that ability just to create by herself. So the opposition cannot commit as many numbers forward, and I think that helps the Chicago team defensively. So when you look at a squad that has been most impacted by one player, I think it's got to go Mallory Pugh.
Yeah, I'm 100% in agreement with this, and with Aly, especially with all the things that you said. But I think a lot of that has to do with the structure and what they put in place with the Chicago Red Stars that has allowed Mallory Pugh to be able to have a free role. And as you mentioned, now she can drop deep, she can drop wide, she can play more centrally. So she has this ability to be able to roam, connect, pick up the ball deeper, and then run it back lines and create a lot of trouble. And a lot of that has to do with the structure behind her and the principles in play. So I think this is one of the reasons why we're seeing her play the best of her career right now. And if she continues to score goals, not only she might play MVP right now, but will be at the end of the year as well.
I'm not disagreeing with either of your picks on Mallory Pugh by any means, but another player in this running is forward for San Diego Wave FC, Alex Morgan. She leads the league right now in goals. She has 9 on the year. She's actually tied in history of the NWSL for a player to score 9 goals in their 9 appearances, and it's how Alex Morgan has been able to do it. Yes, she does have 4 penalty kicks on the season, which is the easiest way for a forward to score. However, her consistency to be able to score from the spot against a number of different goalkeepers when they can study how she's scoring from a penalty spot is still incredibly impressive. On the ball, she's really tough to slow down. Her shots are impressive because she doesn't need a lot of time or space to get the shot off, and that's what has made her so dangerous, keeping San Diego at number 1 in the standings for the last 7 weeks. As an expansion side, that is incredibly impressive to see from Alex Morgan. Whether it's Mallory Pugh or Alex Morgan, both of these players are in action this weekend across the NWSL. Aly, when you look at this slate for this weekend, which game are you focusing on?
Well, I'm picking up where you left off, all right? I'm not going to leave you hanging on Alex Morgan. It's a close second, but the 4 penalties, that skews me a little bit towards Mallory Pugh. But I'm going to go with San Diego and Gotham hosting them. So they're going to make the long journey across the country and go into a park where, look, this was a Gotham team that was beaten really badly by San Diego the last time the two faced off. They lost 4-0. Alex Morgan, to your point, Lisa, got on her scoring tear, had 4 goals in that match, all 4, 2 of which were penalties for San Diego. And since that match, Gotham has shifted into a double pivot system because they've been really exposed in the center of midfield. And that, I think, was a big impetus for what you've seen, a little bit of a bounce back from this Gotham side. They've gotten now 2 results out of their last 4, but they've been tighter games, 1-0 margins in all 4 of their last matches. So They've understood that they got incredibly exposed by the San Diego team. I still expect that to be a big theme in the matchup over the weekend. San Diego was way too easily in behind their back line time and time again. They tested both outside backs, Didasco, Dorsey. And you've got the verticality of the San Diego team that is incredibly explosive and really hard to defend, even though you know it's coming. And so I think this is going to be a good matchup because both teams do like to get vertical. Gotham on the flip side with Midge Purse and Monty Dorsey, they want to get going. They do like to play a bit more direct. So I think this game, if it gets stretched, I think it benefits San Diego, but because they absolutely can play in behind, but they also are a team that likes to control possession. Last time out between these two sides, they controlled the game in possession with 55% of that. And I just think that they have the tools to continue to take advantage of a Gotham team that they match up incredibly well against. But it's going to be a big one because San Diego hasn't had a win in their last three. They're picking up points, and that's one of the things they prided themselves on, is continuing to pick up points to stay at the top of the table. But I think they need a result. And Gotham, of course, wants to get out of the middle of the table.
Yeah, and a little bit to your point, Al, I think across the board, these teams need points because we're going into international break. You have Euros, you have World Cup qualifiers, so there's a lot at play, teams missing players. I have Washington playing at home versus Louisville. This is two teams that are coming off losses. And in fact, for Louisville, it's 3 in a row with losses. They've given up 6 goals in their last 2 matches. And I think this is going to be a big one for Washington playing at home. The first practice today that they've had a full practice in 33 days because they've had so many matches. I expect this Washington team to be much more fit, much more ready to go than they have in previous games, where the standard and the expectations just haven't been up to their level, given all the things I talked about, fatigue that's set in, the amount of games. So I expected this one, a high tempo from Washington. But on the other side for Louisville, this is a team that is young, they're energetic. However, I do believe that the issue that they've had is they get stretched centrally. They give up too much space, whether it's between their attacking midfield and their 2 holding mids or between the 2 holding mids and their back line. And when Washington is at their best, they find those gaps and spaces. So it's going to be about Washington at home, coming out on the front foot, moving the ball quickly, finding a good tempo, and seeing if they can take it to this young Louisville team who has, quite frankly, had struggled, and without a ton of experience around their team, I think who struggle against a high-paced Washington team at home.
Between Kansas City Current and the Chicago Red Stars, this match is set to be incredibly close between these two. Kansas City, they are 3 games undefeated, and most recently they've added CC Kaiser in a trade with Racing Louisville to the front line alongside forward Kristen Hamilton. Kaiser and Hamilton add a new look for the Current that really frustrates opponents' back lines. Because of that, they can get in behind, they can get on the flanks, and they can create those number up opportunities because Hamilton and Kaiser play so well together. When we look at the other side, Chicago Red Stars, they are 5 games undefeated. However, their last 3 games have only come by a 1-goal margin. Because of that, Chicago hasn't been able to score a plethora of goals. And then when you look at Chicago's back line, center back Kayla Sharples just announced she tore her ACL. So that puts a lot of pressure on the Red Stars defense. And head coach Chris Petroselli has a lot of decisions to make as to who he's going to slot into that center back role. Alongside Zoe Morris and Tatum Lazo, the other 2 outside backs, a lot of pressure is going to be put on them and goalkeeper Alyssa Nair with what Kansas City Current's forwards Kaiser, Hamilton, Elise Bennett off the bench can do. It's going to be a big battle between Chicago's defense and Kansas City's attack. When we look across the board, a lot of really good games to watch. But Aly, you highlighted San Diego Wave FC versus Gotham. Which player in this match has your attention?
I know you're going to hate this because I'm not going Alex Morgan. Everyone should go Alex Morgan in this, but I'm going Taylor Korniak. This is a player that got her first call up to the U.S. Women's National Team for qualifiers next month, and she's had a massive season. You talk to many coaches, managers around the league. She's a player that they look to shut down, and it's not just her ability in the box. Yes, she picked up the brace against Portland in their comeback draw a couple games ago, but it's between the lines. We talk about Gotham potentially shifting to that double pivot against San Diego. I think that Korniak's role becomes ever more important she's a player that is box-to-box midfield, so she drops low to help in their build. But as we've seen, she helps create on the opposite side. One of their goals against Gotham FC came out of a run out of midfield from her. This is a technical player, so there's more to meet the eye in Taylor Korniak. It's just not the impressive size that helps get them down the pitch. It's just not the occupying of backs inside the 18 that frees up an Alex Morgan, if you will. It's her ability to also dictate play in midfield. And I think that was something that perhaps was under the radar with this skill set of Taylor Korniak. But she has come on so strong this season. She's playing incredibly well in Casey Stoney's system. And I expect big things from her. So with the confidence of the call-up, this could be a big week.
Yeah, I'm going with a midfielder as well, Andi Sullivan for the Washington Spirit. I think this is going to be a massive game for her. This is a player that hasn't had a ton of consistent minutes, dealing with some injuries throughout this opening part of this regular season. Going to get the start. And yes, we can talk about her ability on the ball and dictating tempo, keep it linking play. But really it comes down to her problem solving, her ability to be able to see the game in front of her. And that is going to be important for this Washington Spirit team. When she is on the field, they give up fewer chances, they give up fewer goals. And when I talk about Louisville and their ability to, or susceptibility to get stretched in the midfield, that's when the positioning of Andi Sullivan is going to be so important. Out of possession, but then in possession, being able to find Sanchez, Trinity Rodman out wide, higher up the field, and be able to exploit that space. So her ability to problem solve quickly and just in general being able to dictate her team and pull players back in to be able to win the ball and then be able to counterattack quickly, I think is going to be the difference maker. And to Ally's point about Korniak, this is a big game for Andi Sullivan as well. She's going in with the national team, most likely going to be that starting six. And I think this is a good time for her to start building momentum and showing a little bit of the nuance that she brings to the game outside of just keeping possession and linking play.
Aly, you didn't give me Alex Morgan as your player to watch, but I'm going to do you and Lori a solid. Between Kansas City and Chicago, it's got to be the Red Stars forward, Mallory Pugh, that everyone needs to be keeping your eye on. As you both mentioned, she can score so many goals in such a variety of ways. She sits on opponents' back shoulders and she gets in behind, and she makes every defender have to keep an eye on her at all times. But defensively, it's the work that Pugh does off the ball. Her work rate is incredible. She starts the high press for Chicago, which forces so many turnovers. And then in the end, she's able to get in behind and get one-on-one with a defender or even the opponent's goalkeepers. Then when you look at the other forwards playing alongside Mallory Pugh or even the midfielders in behind her, she's developed such a great chemistry and a rhythm with those players, whether it's Ella Stevens or Sarah Griffith or DiBernardo in the midfield. She can create those 2v1 man-up opportunities all over the pitch because she does drop into that midfield space, playing in between the lines and breaking up the play for Chicago. She's their go-to player to score all the goals. That's why you both touted her as your MVP of the year. But between Kansas City and Chicago, it's Mallory Pugh. A lot of the offensive pressure falls on her shoulder, and up until this point, she's been able to deliver. Aly, Lori, thank you both so much for being here and breaking it all down. A lot of great games across the weekend for the NWSL. You can catch all three of these games on Paramount Plus. And between Gotham FC and San Diego Wave FC, that match is also on CBS. You can catch that Sunday at 4 o'clock Eastern.